The story is about a father and his two daughters who must fight for survival against a rogue lion in the African wilderness.
Stay still, don't make a sound.
We open up to a jungle as a group makes their way to a trap they set up. A pack of lions is attempting to take the meat that was left at the trap when the pack starts fire. The rest of the pride is dead, but one makes it out alive. While the others adjusted the trap, they split out to look for the remaining lion. They can feel the lion is still around, watching over them as they weave through the dense grass. However, they realize they need to catch him before he catches them after noticing the size of the footprint. While the others wait for the remainder of the gang, the boss leaves in that truck once the rest of the team has finished loading up the dead lions. Sure enough, the lion takes out every single one of them, and the last one he gets ends up getting trapped in the same trap that was meant for the lion. Later, as they soar above the savannah, Nate wakes up aboard a private aircraft and checks in on his daughters, Nora and Meredith, who are seeing the planes for the first time. When they eventually touch down on a private airstrip, Nora can't help but remark on how hot Africa is. It's not like she's surprised. It also turns out that Meredith prefers to go by Mare, so we're gonna go with that also because it's shorter. Martin shows up to pick them up while they're waiting, and he drives them through the same village that the girl's mother grew up in. Eventually, they arrive at Martin's house, and Nate can't believe how good it looks. Once inside, Nora can't believe there's no Wi-Fi or cell phone service, but Martin assures her there's plenty to see and do around the area. The ladies say these are the most gorgeous photos they have ever seen when they come across some photos that Nate's wife shot when she was in Africa while exploring the property. As the gang prepares for supper that night, Nate stops over to see how Mare is doing. She's clearly going through a difficult moment, but she's persevering. After a while, Nora strolls about and observes that there is barbed wire and machetes everywhere, but she still stops by to join in. When Mare finally chooses to talk about how angry she is that Nate didn't get to see their mother live out her final year, it becomes clear that they were genuinely apart. To what extent could he truly support her? Isn't the whole point of a separation that the two parties aren't comfortable with one another? After the girls lay down, Nate and Martin go outside for a drink, and Nate asks Martin why he missed the funeral. Martin shares that he simply didn't want to see Nate's wife interred in New York when she belonged in this African cemetery with her people. As a doctor, Nate still blames himself for missing the cancer's warning signs, despite the fact that they were separated from their wife. However, Martin reassures him that the disease would have taken her life regardless of his presence. The next day, Banji radios Martin about a location, and Nate and the girls come out to join Martin on a safari trip. They see all sorts of animals while they're out, and they eventually come up to an abandoned schoolhouse where Banji is supposed to be. When they get out of the car, Martin asks everyone to stay close to the vehicle, and they hop out to meet Banji. Banji's watching the nearby pride on the preserve, and sure enough, they walk right up to them. Apparently, Martin raised them since they were cubs, so he has an in. When they return to the car, Martin decides to see if the poachers have done anything recently because he noticed that one of the females is wounded again. On the way there, he explains that the poachers are now pursuing lions due to the black market profit, and Nora brings up the fact that there are anti-poachers who actually hunt the poachers. When they arrive at the village, Martin emphasizes that it's not a tourist village and that they just need to be as courteous as possible. Something feels off when they walk through the village and realize that the villagers aren't there, leading Nate to believe they should just leave. Suddenly, Martin warns Nate to take the girls back to the truck, but Nate rushes into the hut to find a grisly scene. Nate sends the girls to the car by themselves, and that definitely doesn't seem like the smart option after finding a hut full of dead people. Martin explains that this looks like the work of a lion, and since there are no scavengers about, he thinks the lion is still there. Nate rushes out to see if he can find the girls, but Nora screams from a far-off place. After running around a bit, he finds Nora, and they rush to the car. After finding more dead villagers, Martin starts driving them all down the path, but they're stopped when a man stumbles in their way. Martin gets out to check on the man, and Nate follows after him. The man's from the village, and he claims the devil did all of this. Suddenly, Martin hears a roar in the bushes, and he tells Nate to get back to the car. Nate runs back to get a medical kit for the man, and he tells Mare to try and reach someone on the radio. When Nate gets back to the man, he's already dead. Martin ventures farther away from the path, searching for the devil lion, and he eventually comes across a giant paw print. He hears an animal roaring somewhere in the water, and he decides to saunter in. Something comes up behind him and he shoots his gun. Nate hears the shot, and he starts treading in the same direction, but he quickly runs back to the car just as a giant lion charges after him. He barely makes it inside in time, but the lion won't give up. After the lion reaches in the window, Mare starts the car and starts driving, but she only gets so far before running into a tree. Luckily, that tree keeps them from rolling off a little cliff, but the car won't start now. While Nate is doing his best to soothe the girls, Martin abruptly calls them on the walkie-talkie. Martin informs them that he isn't feeling well and that he can't tolerate it since the lion attacked him. It's obvious that Martin is going into shock when he instructs them to wait in the car because someone will arrive. Nate instructs him to heat up his knife with his lighter and informs him that he will have to cauterize his artery on his own. Martin informs Nate that the lion is gazing directly at him and that he will come grab him. He believes the lion is surrounding him and he is the bait. After Mare recalls Nate about the tranquilizer pistol, they quickly put it together. When they tell Martin that they plan to come get him, he thinks it's a very bad idea, but he realizes it's the only one they have. He tells Nate he doesn't have eyes on the lion anymore, and Nate hops out of the sunroof to search for the lion. Remember that Nate is a doctor, not a hunter. As Mare plans to venture outside to locate Martin, the lion determines that now would be an excellent moment to make an appearance. Has Nate struck the lion? Naturally, no. It's unlikely that he has ever handled a gun, until Nora actually stabs the lion in the butt with one of the tranquilizer darts. Mare arrives at Martin in the interim, and she begins assisting him in getting back to the automobile. When they return, Martin's leg is helped by a safari operation performed by Nate and Mare. The tranquilizer doesn't last as long as they thought it would, though, and the lion shows up nearby. The four survivors decide to wait it out in the car, but when night falls, Mare decides to call Nate out for old broken promises. Nora understands that now is not the time or place for that, so even she encourages her to stop. Martin awakens after the girls have gone to sleep and inquires as to what he missed. Since he hasn't seen the lion in a while, Nate suggests that it may have given up, but Martin isn't entirely certain of that. Since the lion isn't eating what it kills, Martin believes there is a serious problem, and he surmises that this is because poachers have destroyed the lion's pride. Martin believes that what they're doing is the right course of action, even though Nate tells him he has to get his ladies out of here. Later on in the evening, Nate has another nightmare in which he falls behind his wife and wakes up to find the water gone and the girls gone. Turns the headlights on to find the girls standing in front of him and the lion gets them. This is just a series of bad dreams looped together. When they're all finished, it seems like nothing is wrong and that everyone is simply dozing off. Poachers suddenly show up, but Nate is able to negotiate their passage to a nearby hamlet. But when they find out that Martin is Nate's friend, it all becomes meaningless. The poachers choose to abduct Nate's kids because, as it turns out, Martin is one of the anti-poachers who Nora mentioned. Thank goodness, the lion appears and begins to hunt down a few of the poachers. In all of the commotion, Nate tries to see if he can steal one of the poachers' cars, but when he finds no keys inside, he decides to find the poacher that was driving. After locating a few dead poachers, none of them have the keys he needs. Eventually, Nate finds the poacher he believes to be in possession of the keys, but just then, his radio goes off, so he has to climb a tree to avoid the lion. Is that a black mamba in the tree with him? Nate's kind of the next best thing. He really lets the snake fall on the lion, and it makes me question how many physicians possess such unique abilities. Back at the car, one of the poachers tries to get in, but Mare makes sure that he can't. In an attempt to help their dad, Mare starts beeping the horn of the car to attract the lion, and she does this at the best possible time since the lion is cornering Nate in the water. After the lion leaves, Nate stumbles upon the poacher that has the keys, and he takes them from his pocket. Then Nate radios back to Nora and tells her that he has the keys. Before he heads back, he takes the poacher's gun though. Back at the car, the other three try to ration the water, but suddenly the lion comes back. As the lion attacks them, Nora and Mare are able to run over to the poacher's car to hide, but the car Martin is in finally tumbles down the hill with the lion inside. After a moment, The lion gets back to its feet and tries to come inside to get Martin. Martin notices a gas leak though, and he sets himself and the lion on fire. Are we about to get a burnt lion like the dogs from Resident Evil? Soon, Nate makes it back to the girls, and he finds that Mare got cut by the lion during their entanglement. He tends to her wound for a moment before turning his attention to the fiery crash at the bottom of the hill. He knows that Martin didn't make it, but he has no idea about the lion. After a moment of silence, he heads back to the poacher's truck and starts driving back the way they came the day before. During the drive, Mare's wound seems to be giving her problems, and Nate tells her to hold on as best as she can. Eventually, they pass the pride that Banji showed them yesterday, and they know that the abandoned schoolhouse is nearby. When they get to it, Mare thinks that they should keep going, but Nate doesn't want her to run out of gas with her in this state. At this point, if they run into the lion one more time, they're done for. That truck has no back to it at all, and two of them are injured. Nate looks for materials to help Mare heal from her injuries, but all he finds is proof of the seriousness of these poachers. In the end, Nate discovers an ancient medicine box with an ancient bottle of alcohol and a little amount of clean gauze. He tells Mare what he's doing and why while he tends to the wound, reassuring her that everything will be well. She's dehydrated, so after bandaging her wound, Nate searches around for a little water, not realizing that the lion has followed them all the way back. As the lion approaches the area where Mare and Nora are hiding, they cry out for Nate to come to their aid. Nate fires twice but is unsuccessful. Go figure that those were the last 2 rounds in the gun too. At least he was able to scare it off for a moment. Nate takes the girls to another part of the school and closes all of the entrances. He gives the girls one more embrace before heading outdoors, telling them they won't survive if they remain together for now. He sets out on the broad plain, leading the lion by beating his knife on everything as soon as he gets outdoors. Who would have guessed that today they would be seeing a doctor versus lion match? It's fortunate that the lion was injured in the explosion, but it's even more fortunate that he may get assistance from Banji's pride of amiable lions. I feel like this is way more punishment than any human could actually take. As Nate passes out, Banji arrives with help and tranquilizers. When Nate finally awakens in the hospital, Mare and Nora are there to welcome him. As a result of leading the other lion into its pride territory, according to Nate, the jungle came to be ruled by the latter. After a while, the 3 of them return to the savannah to snap a final family portrait in the same style that their mother did years before. The credits start to roll. To be honest, I didn't expect this movie would be about much more than 3 individuals stuck in a car, yet it was. It was unexpectedly fun, and I wholeheartedly endorse it. Try it out. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe for more. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.